And welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council, February 20th. May we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Chavez?
Here.
Councilmember Fish?
Here.
Councilmember Yu?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mann?
Here.
Mayor Sternquist?
Here. We move to item 3, our invocation, and Bishop Raymond McKinley is here from the Golden West Baptist Church located at 4856 Golden West, and he will provide the invocation this evening. Welcome, Pastor. Or Bishop, I'm sorry.
Shall we pray? Father, we're so grateful tonight for this opportunity to see a brand new day, a day that we've never seen before and a day that we shall never see again. And we realize that any day we wake up is always a good day. So we ask a special blessing tonight over our city council, over our council members, as well as our mayor, and as well as those that work and participate with our city. We're so grateful tonight for these that have come out that are being celebrated on tonight, and we ask a blessing upon this meeting. In your Son, Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop. We move to item 4, our Pledge of Allegiance. Troop 161 will lead the pledge. Scouts presenting the flags are Anthony Hahn, Brandon Ling, Duncan Vergara, and Christopher Dew. Welcome.
Color guard, attention. Color guard, front and center. Color guard, forward march. Halt. Please post the colors. All those in uniform, please salute. All those not in uniform, please join me in the please place your right hand over your heart. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard, uniform. Color guard, retreat. Halt. Color guard dismissed. The audience may now be seated. Thank you.
We move to item 5, ceremonial matters presentations. And our first one is Fire Captain Andrew Cleveland has been, is it that correct? Cleveland?
Yes, please.
Cleveland has been selected as the 2017 Firefighter of the Year. Fire Captain Cleveland is an 18-year veteran of the fire department and has been assigned to Station 47 for the past 10 months. I would like to call up Assistant Fire Chief Dave Thies to introduce Fire Captain Cleveland.
I wish I could. He's on a fire.
That's his only excuse.
That's excuse. So his wife Angie is here to accept the award for him.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh. So we were just at the fire station. I got here to be part of this, and there's a fire down in 90s area, which is south of the 60 in the riverbed, and they have a couple acres of brush and bamboo burning. So they started asking for more engines, and he had to leave. So that's the way it goes. So I have a bio that he wanted me to read, and I'll start with that. So Captain We know him as AJ. Cleveland has a combined 20-year career in the fire service, starting as a firefighter with the Laguna Beach Fire Department. He joined the Los Angeles County Department in 2000, where he has had the honor of serving the cities of Rosemead, South El Monte as a firefighter, paramedic, and an engineer, and now in Temple City as a fire captain. Captain Cleveland was promoted to fire captain in 2017 and has been assigned to Fire Station 47, where he has proudly served the residents of Temple City for the last 10 months. Captain Cleveland was born and raised in the city of La Habra, where his father was a firefighter. He graduated from Santa Ana City College and Cal State Fullerton. And Captain Cleveland lives in Laguna Beach with his wife, Angie, who is a 911 operator for Laguna Beach Police and Fire Departments. In addition to that, his passion is going to the beach. He likes long walks on the beach. I had to say that. He's not here, so I can. He likes working out, right, guys? Like 5 times a day, he tells us. Or used to. Yeah. He says he's trying to lean out now, so he only goes like once a day now. But he spends a lot of time at the ocean. He enjoys fishing, boating, diving, and snorkeling. So anyway, Angie's here. Angie, like I said, works for Laguna Beach and is here to accept the award for him. Thanks.
Thank you. Council?
It's nice.
Jerry can probably put him in the photo later. Sure. Guys in the front.
Oh, thank you. We'll find windows. Yeah, we found it.
Hang on just a second. Okay, good. Photoshop the. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, appreciate it. Sorry to get here.
We'll have a good another meeting.
Thank you. I will do, thank you.
So, council, just stay up there, and I'm on the wrong seat. For a minute. And our next presentation goes to our Deputy of the Year, and I saw him here. Sergeant Ron Miranda has been selected as the 2017 Deputy of the Year. Sergeant Miranda has been on Camellia for the last 6 months. No. Sergeant Miranda has been with the Sheriff's Department for 30 years and has worked as the Temple City Special Assignment Team Sergeant for the past 7 years. And here to introduce Sergeant Miranda is Captain David Flores.
Hello, Mayor, Council. So Ron Miranda, when I first got to the station about a year ago, I held meetings with my sergeants and team liaison people, and right away, when I was asking Ron about statistics and what we are doing for corrective action, I knew right away Ron is one of those guys that he's task-oriented, he's a peer leader, and mostly he's one of the most conscientious deputies I've ever had the pleasure to work with in my 30 years. Ron is task-oriented, but mostly he is one of those guys that he makes things right. We're not perfect. We do our best. We do a great job. We take our job very, very seriously. But sometimes, due to time or multiple calls coming out, there's a time where if I need someone to follow up and make things right, Ron is the guy. So Ron, I'm very, very proud of you, and I really appreciate you having on the team. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just personally want to thank you, Ron. I think you're a great asset to our city, and I can't think of a nicer person. So thank you and all that you bring to the city, and I know we all share that. So thank you. So let's take a picture. Okay.
Have everybody come up.
Gentlemen in the back.
Anybody in uniform has to come up.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, you guys are-
David, do you want to hold this one and stand next to him? Gentlemen, you go to the front.
Yeah, right.
Can you see William?
Neil's running with it. That's good, that's perfect. That's great. Wait a minute. You got a smile. Are you smiling? Oh, wait a minute, I got something coming. Come on up. That's my little angel. That's my daughter, not my granddaughter. Come on up. Give me a touch. Okay, come on up.
Thank you so much. Of course. So this is where he is also.
That's where he is, yeah.
That's where he hangs out. I think you're smiling. Congratulations, big guy. Good job. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi,
How are you
how are
doing?
you?
Nice to meet you. Good, how are you?
Hi, nice to see you again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for you. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Just in time.
Okay, we move to item 6. Public comments on items not listed on the agenda. And I believe I have Augustine Lee. Yes, up to the podium, Augustine. Welcome.
Hello, council members. I am a resident of Temple City, have been so for a long time. This is my first time actually coming to a city council meeting, so I'm not sure how these things work, but
Doing great.
I just read, I have 3 minutes, so I'll try to make it as brief as possible. So it just came to my attention as of recently that there has been quite an alarming number of home burglaries in and around the Temple City area, particularly my area. I'm aware of because of applications such as Ring, Nextdoor. They're all applications that are downloadable and they kind of work as little community watch applications. And myself and other neighbors around the area are able to share photos, videos, and things that have occurred. And that led to a pretty lengthy discussion over the past 2 days. And the main question that kept coming up was, what's our city doing about it? And what are our elected officials doing about it? And what is also our law enforcement doing about it? So I'm sure that robberies and home burglaries will always happen. They've always happened, but the statistic that came out, published by the Temple City Newsletter itself, in 2017, there were 233 home burglaries. And one recently, a friend of a friend's mother was home alone where she was intruded upon by 3 criminals and put in her bedroom while they ransacked the house. So luckily, she wasn't hurt or anything, but she is okay. But I don't think anyone should have ever have to have gone through that. But it just seems like this number has continued to grow, and it seems like it will always continue to grow. And so I'm just wondering what we're doing about that.
Augustine, the city has addressed the rise in crime, not just in Temple City, because we have to look at it in the surrounding cities also, and the whole San Gabriel Valley has had an increase. But I would love for you to give, I have your information, if you wouldn't mind putting your email here also and your phone number.
Absolutely.
And I can have Mr. Cook, our city manager, call and let you know some of the proactive approaches that we have taken with our sheriff's department and our residents and our neighborhood watch program. So if you would do that, give it to Mr. Cook, and he will contact you personally.
Okay, but my quick question to you council members, were you aware of the amount of home burglaries that have been going in and around the city of Temple City as of recent?
We do have once a month breakfast meetings with our sheriff's department where we go over all the statistics, and those are open to the public. They're on at 7 a.m. Is it the second or third Wednesday?
Last
Wednesday.
Wow, it's the last Wednesday. But you're more than welcome and invited, and you can let your residents know that they are also welcomed, and we entertain public comments at those meetings also, and we go over the crime statistics. And so I'd love to invite you and have you come.
All right. I can't promise you that due to a work schedule, but I would
Well,
like
let
to
your
be-
neighbors know if any of them are
Right.
interested, that they are open and they can
Okay.
get the firsthand information, but the city is always willing to provide that for you also.
Have you ever attended one of our neighborhood watch programs?
You know, I actually just found out about it online. I mean, this all occurred within
How long have you lived
2
here in
days.
Temple City?
I'm 30, I just turned 34. I've been here for 30 years.
Okay, because we've had them for how many years now? 7 years we've been doing neighborhood
Okay.
watches.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to my friends who I grew up with here, and they weren't even aware that there was Neighborhood Watch. I mean, we just Googled it, and we know that there's something out there, but I think the next meeting is coming up in like 3 months or something.
No.
We have a
one-
monthly.
once a
Monthly.
We have a monthly.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we have a
Yeah.
neighborhood watch monthly, and we have a sheriff's breakfast meeting monthly that are open to the public.
I see. Okay,
But I know Mr. Cook will get back to you.
all right.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Well, Mr. Lee might want to know that because this is a public comment, so really not a topic that we can really discuss
Okay.
and respond to. That's why if our answer's been kind of abbreviated, is because this is really not an agendized item tonight. So I think your questions could be best answered either by Mr. Cook directly or during those 2 meetings that we mentioned, neighborhood watch meetings,
Okay.
or the monthly, end of monthly public safety meetings. And actually, the city been doing a lot on just the very thing that you talked about. So,
All right.
Just one last question. You mentioned Ring. Did you purchase Ring for your own home?
I actually didn't, but the great thing about their app is that you don't have to necessarily have purchased a Ring. It just allows you to record and upload if you have a Ring camera. But the app is free for anybody who wants to download it, and you get to see what people are sharing. But Nextdoor is also another great app because people who usually post on Ring also post there. So it's like your online neighborhood watch.
Well, I
program.
know the city did some subsidizing of a Ring program, and it was, Brian, was that 400? 400 residents that did take advantage of that. So I just was curious because I'm wondering, since you mentioned it, if you knew that that was available.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I did read about that, and I
Okay,
thought that was a
okay.
great program.
Okay.
But it's just more, it's not just, well, we can set up as many cameras as we
Sure.
can. It's just
Oh,
more.
Sure.
I don't think they care anymore about cameras. They're getting pretty brave.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and having an interest in public safety here, because it's definitely a concern of all of ours, and we have our captain here, and he comes to our meetings monthly, and I really feel that shows that we're working continuously with our public safety officers and our residents and the city. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your time. Yep.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment? Okay, I'm going to close public comment, and we move to the consent calendar.
I'll move
we have-
to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any objections? Okay, so moved. We move to item 8. Public hearing, none. Unfinished business, none. Item 10, new business, consideration of calling a special municipal election to amend the city's charter to include the Temple City voter participation compliance measure. And we're going to have our city attorney, Eric Vale.
Mayor, tonight I have Assistant City Attorney Greg Murphy, who's worked on this project with you all along, who will, along with your city clerk, give your staff report and presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. On December 19, 2017, the council adopted a resolution directing city staff to bring to the council a charter amendment that would change the city's election to achieve compliance with Senate Bill 415. The item before you tonight is a request to consider calling a special municipal election to include the Temple City voter participation compliance measure for the purpose of amending city's charter to codify a change to the city's general municipal election date for compliance with Senate Bill 415. I will turn the presentation over to Assistant City Attorney Murphy to talk about what actions need to occur if council determines that a special municipal election is appropriate.
Welcome, Greg.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, honorable council members. We went through the background for this matter on December 19th. I'm more than happy to talk about it if any member of the council has any questions. But as Peggy said, my initial goal tonight is just to walk through what actions need to be taken to put this on the June ballot. You may remember in 2016, the council put on the ballot and the city overwhelmingly adopted Measure AA. Similar to what you did when you put that item on the ballot, tonight we would ask that you adopt resolution number 18-5313. That will call a special municipal election for June 15th, 2018 for the purpose of adopting the charter amendment. We also ask that you adopt resolution 18-5314. That will seek to have your special municipal election consolidated with the statewide election being run that day. That will allow the county to oversee the election, which means that instead of there being separate polling places or potential confusion, this will appear on the ballot that residents will be going to the polls to vote on that day. I should note that the city attorney's office, if this matter goes to the voters, is required to do an impartial analysis. Again, you may remember that from Measure AA 2 years ago. The impartial analysis talks about the reasons for the measure and what the measure will do. In this case, we have a measure that's being compelled or being forced on us by a change to state law. You may recall that with Measure AA, the City Council felt it was important to also have a ballot argument in favor of the measure. If the Council would like to have a ballot argument in favor of the measure on this item, that would be something that one or more Council members could be appointed by the Council tonight and could get together with members of the public to draft an argument in favor of this matter. Unlike with Measure AA, this is a fairly straightforward legal compliance measure, so you may or may not want to do an affirmative argument. If you do decide to do an argument, Peggy has some cutoff dates and deadlines that she can discuss with you. As a final matter, I want to note that cities in the area that have had, as Temple City has had, elections other than on the November even year general statewide election or the statewide nominating election, cities are required to make this change. Most of the cities around us either are general law cities that will be doing this by ordinance or have charters that specifically allow the election date to be moved by ordinance. Very few have had to go through the charter amendment process. But recently, Arcadia, Monrovia, and Glendora have made the same move that we are recommending to you, which is to take the 2019 election and move it back to 2020. I'm going to turn it back over to Peggy. She has some of the financial reasons behind doing this deal with the running of the elections and why it is that most cities in the same position that you were in are making the move that we're recommending to you tonight. Peggy?
So to address the issue why some of the cities are making the move to consolidate or to change their election day and consolidate with the county is that the city last week received an email from Martin and Chapman, which is our long-time consultant that help us conduct standalone elections, share with us that the future of the company is very unclear with all the cities changing their election date and no longer conducting standalone elections, that they will not likely be able to provide services to entities that wish to keep their existing election dates. So that was just last week. And just to bring up to council, the estimated cost to add a measure to the council, to the county's June 2018 election is approximately $46,000. And this item would have a financial impact on the fiscal year 17-18 city budget if council calls for a special election to amend the city's charter. So at this time, City Council is requested to consider the recommendations as listed on the staff report and provide staff with such other direction as council deem appropriate. And that concludes our presentation, and we're available to answer any questions council may have.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Madam Mayor, just a couple more financial issues. One, as Peggy said, it will cost approximately $46,000 to put this on the ballot in June. If Martin and Chapman is even in existence to run a 2019 election, that is, if you wanted to run the 2019 election and then make a change after that, Martin and Chapman would charge approximately $114,000 to run that election. That's an increase of over $40,000 over what the 2015 election, the last contested election that the city ran, cost.
But Mr. Murphy, that's only if they can still be around to run that.
That is
election,
correct.
right?
If
That's
they
a lot
still
of
exist.
assumptions right there,
Correct.
yeah.
The County of Los Angeles has provided us with a rough estimate of $227,000 to run an election in March of 2019. Because they are not set up, it wouldn't be a consolidated election, so they would have to pull their personnel and specially run the election for us. So it's very likely, given the email that Peggy received last week, that you would be looking at about $225,000 to run a standalone election in March of 2019. Given that impact on the 2018-19 fiscal year budget, we're recommending, as we've said, putting this charter amendment on the ballot and making this change immediately.
Okay, thank you. Any council questions? Councilmember Yu? Mayor Pro Tem? Councilmember Fish? No? Councilmember? I don't have any questions. Can we have a motion? Or I'm going to open public comment first. Anyone? Close public comment. Council comments? None? Council
Hey, I
motion?
just have a question before we make a motion of our city attorney. It would appear from the staff report and looking at it, it almost would make more sense to do two different motions, or should it all be one? Because in reading the staff report, it seems to, first of all, recommend that we consider a special municipal special election to adopt this Temple City voter participation compliance. And then if that is determined to be the way we're going to go, then of course we're asked to adopt a couple of resolutions.
You certainly can take it as two separate items, but you're not legally compelled to. These are one package item.
All right,
They
so we
both
can
go
do it in
together.
one.
Do it in one.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right, then Mayor Sternquist, I'm prepared to make a motion that we adopt staff's recommendation calling for a special municipal election to adopt the Temple City voter participation compliance measure for the purpose of codifying in the city charter a change to the city's general municipal election date to comply with new state law and to embrace the city's historical commitment to its diversity and the participation of eligible voters from all ages and backgrounds in elections. Further, move that we adopt resolution number 18-5313, calling a special municipal election for June 5th, 2018, to adopt the measure, setting forth certain election code required steps for adoption of the measure is laid out more fully in the resolution, and that we also adopt resolution 18-5314, requesting the Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles County to consolidate the city's special municipal election with the June 5th, 2018 statewide general election pursuant to section 1200 of the State Elections Code. Now, another question. I know staff's recommendation is to perhaps appoint either council members or other members of the community. Is that something that we want to do separately, or does that need to be part of the motion?
That's something that I would encourage you to do separately, have
Yeah.
some conversation amongst yourself, assuming that the motion you just made
Right,
gets a
would
second
carries.
and passes,
All right.
then you'll come on and discuss
Okay,
that.
that's what I figured. Okay, so that's my motion.
I'll second the motion. Okay, if no objection, we can have the roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fish?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mann?
Yes.
Mayor Sternquist?
Yes. Okay, and now we can discuss the decision on who to appoint. Do
I
you
have
any-
a real quick question on that, though. So if we determine, let's say tonight we decide to select council members or other members of the community to draft that argument, and we decide later on, maybe we don't want to do it, are we bound by this decision? Because it seems to me all we're doing right now is to direct a couple of community members to draft it, but how does that work?
You're actually just selecting a member of the council
Okay,
to work with whoever of their choice or whoever in the community wants to. We can't compel any member of the community, nor
Right.
can we prohibit any member of the community from signing on or drafting the ordinance. We suggest that if you want to have an argument in favor, that you appoint one council member to work with somebody of the some people in the
but
community.
can it also be two council members, though, can it?
Can be two council members.
Because I remember
if you like.
with
Correct.
Measure AA, I think it wasn't it you and I that did that, I think?
You and I and Carl.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Was it Carl as well? Yeah, it was three.
It was
that's
Carl,
right. So we're looking now for, I guess, it doesn't have, there's no number, it's one or more, I guess.
Well, I think Councilmember Chavez, first we're going to decide whether or not we want to have an argument. And then
Right.
if
All
we
right.
decide that we want the argument, then we can move forward with discussion on who will do it.
Okay.
So is there, how do you feel about having an argument? Do you think it's important to, since it's a compliance issue, or?
I have one question before
Yes.
we get into that. Just so I understand clearly, if we somehow decide not to write an argument in favor of it, then we are prohibited from ever entertaining to write one in favor in the future?
No, council could do an argument by the deadline, assuming that you got together and had a special meeting, or other members of the public, or a council member on their own initiative if the council itself decided it didn't want to do an argument.
And that includes also as well, if there was an argument in opposition to that, if there was an argument in opposition without an argument in support, there would be no rebuttal to that argument in opposition as well. And vice versa, same way the other way around.
I have a follow-up question to that. So if we appoint a panel of members to write the argument, that argument need to come back to the board, city council for adoption?
No.
Or not?
No,
It doesn't have to. You can delegate authority to that subcommittee to draft the argument, or you can have it come back if you would like.
Okay, either way. Okay.
So, how many of you would like to have an argument?
I think that we should.
I think we should have an argument.
I think
yes,
we
yeah.
definitely should.
Especially if someone comes up with.
In particular, I think there's
Yes.
some of the, we need to emphasize this is really mandated by the state. And it's, we don't want people to misunderstood it as something else.
So, would you like to entertain the idea of 2 council members or 1 council member and a community member?
Well, do we know if we have any council members that are interested?
Well, I don't see everybody's hand up, but would you like to? No.
I mean, maybe we can start there.
We figure lawyers write better. Good.
Okay, Councilmember Chavez has agreed. Is there anyone else who would like to do it?
I concur.
What is a time, do we have a time length on these?
The deadline for the, to submit an argument is March 16th.
When?
March 16th.
March 16th, it gives
weeks.
about a month, a little less than a month.
2 weeks about.
No,
We're at-
oh, yeah, that's right, we have a short month, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, I'll do it.
What'd I tell you?
All right. But who's gonna help? I need some help.
Who would like to help?
But keep in mind, I mean, so it can be a member of the public,
Yeah,
but
it could be anybody.
we have to ask them first, so obviously we can't force a member of the public to do
I
it.
see Jim Cliff and Jerry Jambazian sitting in
Look at
the.
Jerry.
I'll clarify, you can have whoever you would like help you draft the argument.
We don't need to let them know
You
tonight.
can only have so many people sign the argument.
If I may, so a maximum of 5 people can sign the argument. By directing or appointing Councilmember Chavez to write the argument on behalf of the city council, you will eliminate any chance that another party that wanted to submit an argument in favor might get chosen by the elections official instead of the council. The council, when you put the matter on the ballot, you have the right to do an argument in favor. And if you decide to do an argument in favor, then that automatically is the one that goes in the election handbook and the ballot material. You can quite simply have Councilmember Chavez write on behalf of the council and use any other persons whom he wants to work with and submit it directly. That's completely
We
fine.
can ask staff to make a recommendation and have,
No.
No, staff.
nope.
Staff can't help. at all.
Can staff help?
No.
We have to draft
We
it.
can use this.
We wouldn't have the city attorney's office write your argument for you.
Okay.
Nor do we typically have staff write the argument for you,
Yeah.
because it is supposed to be the council's argument.
Mhm.
Now, we can look at it for grammar and things like that, but
We did it, just the 2 of us.
you're all really smart anyway, so.
So, Councilmember, you wanted to help?
I can help. Yeah,
Okay.
I can help.
Thank you.
So-
All right. So we don't need to vote on that.
You should appoint the 2 members, and then you should decide whether or not you want to have the argument brought back for all of the council members to approve, and you should decide, are all 5 of you going to sign it? It's not necessary. The 2 drafters can sign the argument, but that's something you should talk about.
Okay, so what's your pleasure, William? Councilmember, you?
I really have no problem with Councilmember Chavez and you. I trust them to. I guess what I'm saying is, I wouldn't mind if it didn't need to be brought back to us to approve.
Me too, I don't mind.
I agree. But,
And I don't feel like I need to sign it unless everybody wants to sign it.
I mean, do you think it would be
What do you think?
Restraining a
Better?
little bit, but typically what you see in most ballot measures in argument in favor is that you want to show a broad array
A
of folks,
consensus?
of folks who be maybe just a little bit beyond the council, but it was a representation of the community.
all right? So it would be better to have other people sign it than us. Got it.
Something for you to
thank you.
consider.
And if I recall from AA, those persons have to be registered voters.
Correct.
For the city.
Yes.
Yes.
You mean Measure AA?
Measure
Measure
AA, I'm
A,
sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, same rules apply.
Correct.
Okay, so we're good with that?
If we can have a motion that,
Okay, can we have a motion?
Points?
on? Or-
Wait, you have to appoint.
I think the
Oh.
mayor, do you want a motion or just an appointment by the?
yeah,
mayor?
in this case, we should have the full council
Okay.
make that motion.
All right, so I would make a motion that we appoint myself, Tom Chavez, and Councilmember Vincent Yu to draft the argument in favor of the measure.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay, any objections? Okay, so moved. That's it for that? Okay.
Okay, that's good. That was.
Okay. We move to item B, approval of ordinance number 18-1031 to establish a moratorium on cutting recently resurfaced streets. Mr. Cook? Or
Mayor-
Michael is over here.
Mr. Forbes is here, but Mayor Sternquist, member of the council, members of the council. Before you use an ordinance, a little late in coming in some ways, but we got to it eventually here and related to how utilities and others and can deal with most recently resurfaced streets. So Mr. Forbes will go over a very brief presentation related to this item for your consideration.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As the council knows, the city has done a lot over the last few years as far as implementing our pavement management program through resurfacing streets, both with the slurry seal as well as more recently with the grind and overlay. In order to make sure that those streets are lasting as long as they can and that our dollars are well spent when we have those streets resurfaced. We want to make sure that the streets are only being cut or trenched or dug up by utilities and others when they really need to be, and that when that happens, because it really has to happen, that appropriate steps are taken to make sure that the streets are restored to the condition that they were in before the work was done. We've been doing this as a matter of practice and policy for a while, but out of an abundance of making sure that we're doing things correctly, we're bringing an ordinance before you to give the city engineer the authority to require what we've generally been doing as a matter of practice. So the ordinance that's before you this evening would put in place, it's called a moratorium. Moratorium to me sometimes is a misleading word because it makes it sound like you can't do anything. And really it doesn't, the goal of these is not necessarily to prohibit streets from being cut, it's to very strongly discourage them from being cut. And as I said, when it happens that the person doing the cutting is taking steps to restore the street to the way it was before the work was done. Since a slurry seal is more of a preventive maintenance and is a less expensive seal, the moratorium for that we're proposing to be 3 years, whereas with the grind and overlay, that's a more expensive and more extensive restoration. So we're proposing the moratorium for that to be 5 years, a little bit longer. Those numbers were recommended by the city engineer, and they are consistent with what a number of other cities do. There are a number of cities that have moratoriums in place, very similar or identical to this. So what we're doing is not uncommon in California and in the country. So I'm happy to answer any questions from the council.
Mr. Forbes will take effort to notify utility companies that typically would do this kind of work to make sure they're aware of the moratorium?
Yes, we do. Every time we're preparing for a pavement project, we send letters out to all of the utilities and contact anybody who's doing work or who we know may do work, and let them know that we have projects coming up, and is there anything we need to know about what their work is and what work they're planning. Also, if we're aware of any development projects that are coming up on streets that we're doing, we will talk with the developers and let them know that this is coming so that we can try and coordinate.
Now, if somebody's building a building on one of our recently paved streets and they're coming in for building permit, you have special requirement to make sure that they fix the street out.
Yes.
properly. Yeah. Okay.
Well, they have to get, they were under this, my understanding, under this ordinance is that before they can do anything, they would have to meet with or fall within an exception. In other words, the moratorium says basically you can't unless you do this or fall within one of the exceptions. That's my understanding.
Correct. And
Yeah,
one
that's
of the
what it is.
exceptions is to provide utility service to
Right.
a property where there's no other feasible means of doing so.
And that would also include conditions in putting it back similarly to what it was before they did it, correct?
Correct.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question. As far as the utility companies doing any kind of, let's say, scheduled maintenance or things like that, are you requesting some kind of a time limit? Like they have to give you a certain amount of time before they want to do it? Or are you going to kind of leave that up to whether it gets approved or not? Like, do you want 30-day notice? Do you want 60-day notice?
We always try to work with the utilities, and most of them are pretty good about letting us know far in advance what they're planning. So this would just be, the moratorium would be just another way of us coordinating with them and of making sure that they're planning out, several years in advance. So if they know, 2 years from now they're planning on doing work on a street, and then we tell them, well, we're about to repave it, and then there's going to be a 5-year moratorium, then that may cause them to rethink their schedule and either move the work up or push it back, or if they can't change their schedule, it just means that they're going to have to pay to make the street nice if they do the work within that 5-year period.
Okay,
I
thank
have
you.
one more clarification question. So if we approve the moratorium tonight, that means folks cannot cut story sealed street for 3 years. Does that mean that in the 4th year, we need to bring this back if we were to continue that, or?
No, it's a rolling time period. So it would apply to any streets that we've done in the last 3 years. It would apply to those immediately, and then going forward, any streets that are done, it would start the 3-year clock.
Okay.
Yes.
I just have one. I didn't see anything in the ordinance that addresses any kind of timeline issues. I know that that's, in the past, that seems to be one of the issues that comes up, especially with some of our utilities, particularly the water, when they're working on the water pipes and things like that, where the streets sometimes will sit in disrepair for a relatively long time, or we don't really know when it's going to be finished or how it's going to be finished, including leaving their equipment on the streets for weeks at a time sometimes. Does this ordinance, it doesn't appear to address those issues? Is there something else that may address that issue regarding any kind of time conditions on this type of work as well?
This ordinance does not address that. That what you're talking about is probably a little bit beyond the scope of what we are trying to do with this ordinance. Right now, we deal with the concerns that you're bringing up are often happen with the larger projects. And our inspectors from TransTech are very good about dealing with the contractors on a case-by-case basis with the equipment and storage and things like that. If the council's interested in having something in the code regarding those things, I can work with the city attorney's office to see if that's something that we could do in the code. It's difficult to put time limits on projects sometimes, because depending on the size and scope of the project, the timelines can vary drastically. And often what happens with, like when we get complaints a lot where they'll do temporary patches in the street that are very bumpy and rough, and sometimes they'll sit there for a month or two.
Right.
We talk to the contractors about that, and sometimes we'll make them come back and make the temporary patch better. But typically they have, one contractor comes in and does all the digging and piping, and then once all of that is done, another contractor will come through later and do the pavement patching. So it's not, schedule-wise and cost-wise, it's not efficient for them to do a final patch as they go, because they typically bring a contractor in to do it all at once. So we work with them.
Are you comfortable with the way that's been handled, and it doesn't appear to be a particular problem at this point, and you seem to be getting cooperation for the most part?
Yeah, we've been fairly successful just dealing with the contractors.
Maybe then we hold off on that until it becomes an issue, and maybe something down the road. But I know in the past, it hasn't been so much the fact that they obviously repave it, it's just the time sometimes it's where we get a lot of the complaints from neighbors and people. It's like, well, this tractor's been on my street for 2 months and it just sits there and nothing happens. Those are the kind of things that we get, of course. And
right.
So what I'm hearing is that staff is comfortable with the fact that they seem to be getting cooperation as best they can right now. And I guess my thing would be that if it becomes an issue or something, it's maybe something we can look at down the road.
Certainly.
Thank you.
I also have a couple questions, Mayor. Is it accurate to say that the timing of this moratorium coincides with our understanding of some of the major utility work that has been recently completed? Because, like, for example, I know along Hermosa, Sunny Slope has been doing a lot of work within the last 2 years. So is it our understanding that a majority of their major water work has been completed within our city limits, and that's why we're putting this in place now, or?
No, I think the timing of this is just that because we've done so much street resurfacing over the last few years, and that has also coincided with a lot of water company work over the last few years.
Okay.
And we've had, discussions with the standing committee and input from both of you on the need to have something like this in place. We know there's other water projects that are coming up that may affect some of the streets we've recently resurfaced. So it would certainly be beneficial to have this in place before that work occurs. But like I said, we've had fairly good luck with all of the utilities. Just they understand that when a street has just been resurfaced, it's not good for anybody to come in and make a bunch of holes in it. So we've had pretty good cooperation, but it's always best to have something like this codified so that you have something to point to if someone challenges it.
Good. And in the ordinance, when we say emergency work, that would be up to the discretion of the city engineer to make that determination of what constitutes as emergency work?
Yeah, the municipal code gives the authority to the city engineer, but in practice, generally, if a utility comes to us and says this is an emergency, we have to do it, we're not going to tell them, no, it's not, because then if something should happen, then they're going to point the finger at us and say, well, we told you it was an emergency and you didn't let us do the work. But the way the code is, or the ordinance is written, yes, it's the authority rests with the city engineer.
Yeah, and just one comment. I do like one particular part of the ordinance that gives us the ability to require that some of the resurfacing work extend beyond the work area. So oftentimes you see streets where if they're just doing a trench for a pipeline, then all they do is they patch that one narrow trench area. And if that thing settles over time, then you got this weird bump in the road, right? And what I've noticed is for some of the areas where the utilities have been working, they've actually resurfaced the entire street. Is that something that was done on their own accord, or was that something that we discussed with them and said, hey, you probably should resurface the entire lane of that particular road?
I think it was a combination of both. I think it was, it's in some cases it's walking a fine line because we know it's not reasonable to tell them, you have to resurface the entire block. So we typically wouldn't ask for something like that, but I know there's been a few cases where they've done trenching on both sides of the street, or they've had some of the water service is a zigzag trench back and forth in the street. So in those cases we'll say, hey, you've basically affected the full width of the street because you're going back and forth across the street, and so far they've been agreeable to saying, yes, we agree, we've affected the whole street, so we're going to slurry the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah, I would say wherever it makes sense and is a reasonable request to encourage them to try to do that. I mean, case by case basis, obviously, but I appreciate that part being within the ordinance. So just want to point that out. Thank you.
Anything else? Nope. Okay, I'd like to open public comment. Anyone? Okay, close public comment. No more council comment. Can we have a council motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we introduce ordinance number 18-1031 for first reading by title only, amending Title 6 of the Temple City Municipal Code to establish a moratorium on cutting recently resurfaced streets, to waive further reading of this ordinance, and to schedule the second reading of this ordinance for March 6, 2018.
Second.
Okay, any objections? Okay, so moved.
Did we get a second?
So,
Vince?
Vince did. Okay. Move to item 11, communications, none. 12, an update from our city manager.
Mayor Sternquist, members of the council, very briefly, in the next couple meetings, you will probably see some items from me about some legislative activity that's happening in Sacramento related to some housing issues, some local control issues as well. I won't go into any detail tonight,
But it is a little disturbing, again, that the legislature is trying to dabble into eroding local control, either through revenue measures or through land use again. So just as a general heads up, in the next couple meetings, we usually don't deal with legislation unless it directly impacts us. But there's some legislation that's coming down the pike that's probably going to directly impact us on the land use side and related to our ability, not that we want to, but our ability to deal with fees and revenue. So that'll be coming probably in the next couple meetings as things progress in the legislature as well. And Camellia Festival this weekend. Be ready. A lot of exciting stuff. They always try to make things a little new, fresh and new for the Camellia Festival. So closure starting Wednesday night, and we'll see you at the festival.
Bring your jackets.
Bring your jackets. Thank you, Mayor Sternquist.
But at least we don't, it looks like we won't need our umbrellas, so that's good.
But that's good. That's true.
That's good.
Can always stay a little bit warmer, but it's
Yeah.
hard to stay out of the rain. Okay, update from our city attorney.
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, council reports regarding ad hoc or standing committee meetings. Do we have any? Nope. Okay, council items separate from the city manager's regular report. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to quickly share, was it a week or two ago, I had the pleasure of attending the second Lunar New Year festival held at Temple City Park hosted by our chamber, as well as the, I believe they're called the Bliss and Wisdom Foundation. I had never attended their event, so it was my first time, and I was surprised, pleasantly surprised at how well they ran it, how organized it was. I didn't know all the food vendors there were vegetarian. That was something I learned. But I guess that's consistent with, I guess the organization has Buddhist roots, so I think that's consistent with that.
They like the City of Temple City because of our name.
Oh, I see. I didn't realize that. Because the
what?
Because the temple, or Temple City.
Did they have a lion dance also?
They did, but it was not as good as ours. So I'll just put that out there. Nothing against them. It was great. Overall, it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I also want to share that Councilmember Fish and Councilmember Yu and I attended a brief Lunar New Year celebration at the County Board of Supervisors office last Tuesday. Also pleasantly surprised at how they ran things. They also had the same lion dancers that we had at our event. I believe one of their deputies asked our Parks and Rec for the contact info, so that was a.
That's exciting.
Yeah, they're the only group that has a purple lion, to my
so we know.
understanding. So
We recognize them.
So that was good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm definitely looking forward to the Camellia Festival.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fish?
Just really quickly, again, looking forward to this weekend. A lot of activities with our parade and our festival. Come out and support all of our youth groups and community groups that are raising money. Also wanted to mention our mayor's prayer breakfast is coming up at First Baptist Church on March 9th. It will be from 7 to 8:30. It is free. It is open to the public, so we'll be getting some information out to everyone. And then I just wanted to personally thank and congratulate Sergeant Ron Miranda. He's a wonderful asset to our city. I've gotten to know him very well, all of us in the past few years, and he loves our community. He does what he can for our community. I don't really know when this man gets any sleep, because I can get phone calls from him at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then 24 hours later, I'm getting a phone call from him at 2 in the morning, and I'm telling him to go home. So just wanted to.
He calls you at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, he has, yes.
Why?
For things, well, you know.
Oh, okay.
But I just want to say, he's very dedicated, so I think that award was very well deserved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chavez?
Thank you. I certainly agree with those sentiments as well. I think it's really a great thing that we honor our first responders. We tend to forget sometimes that these are the people who put their lives on the line for us every day. And they do it, obviously it's their job, but I think we understand in working with our firefighters and our sheriffs that they really care about the community, and they do it in a way, especially with Sergeant Miranda. He doesn't live here in Temple City, but I think he cares just as much about what happens here as anybody who does live here. And on that note, you know, I know that there are people out there that are frustrated with the amount of crime and things that they hear about what's happening in the city. And I just want to just let everyone know that all 5 of us up here share that frustration, and that's why we meet regularly with our sheriffs to figure out a way of you know, making sure that those things don't happen. But you know, we're never going to solve it 100%, but they certainly do a really good job. And I would urge everyone out there that you have to become engaged. You know, when I hear people, you know, get frustrated about these types of things that happen, but then have never attended a neighborhood watch or have never attended any other meetings, and you know, my response is that, you know, we all need to work together, and that's one of the things we stress at the neighborhood watch is that, you know, they can't do it alone, and we need everyone's help. So those people who are out there that are seeing things happen, of course, are all part of that protection. And so I would urge everyone to attend those neighborhood watches, to as I think Mayor Sternquist pointed out earlier, to come to the meetings that we have with the sheriff. I know they're very early. The reason we do that is because of the shift change, and we want to make sure that they are not inconvenienced as well, meaning the sheriffs or deputies. But there are a lot of ways to get involved and stay involved, and the more people we can get involved in those things, the better that we are going to be as a community, and that much safer. And I know it's hard to believe, but we are a relatively safe community, given what's happening everywhere. I know that doesn't help the person who was just recently burglarized or whatever, but you know, we are always committed to improving those things. And you know, but at any time anyone has a question or a concern, they can come to either of us up here, or I know our sheriff, our captain is always willing to talk with people from the public about anything they want to talk about. So that's all I have.
Right, thank you. Well, just to echo that, I think that sometimes it's hard to see when you hear statistics and numbers that crime is increasing, and it's not in isolation, that it's just our city. It's regionally, and it's something that, you know, is a concern of all of ours. And I know that the sheriff department, through our neighborhood watch, have told residents that you can even have them come out and tell you what you can do to help make your residents more safe, you know, cutting bushes down, different things. But, you know, public safety for a long time was just somebody else, the sheriffs or the police department, depending on what city you lived in. They, you know, they took care of it. There's a problem, and they're going to take care of it. But I think you know, with the recent laws that have gone into effect and this revolving door in prisons, it's become more, it has to be more of a shared responsibility. You look out for your neighbors, you know, you engage with your neighbors, you know what vehicles are there. You know, one of the things I was thinking also is just, we changed that policy during the holidays, where we relax our policy. And I know a couple of neighbors expressed to me and said, do we have to do that as a city for a long period of time? It seems like a long period of time.
You're talking about the overnight parking?
The overnight
Okay.
parking, because they're not accustomed to the different vehicles being on their street. And actually, that's the time when it seems people are out shopping, and there's a lot out of town. So maybe it's something that we can look at, it maybe reducing the amount of time that we do that. I think right now, isn't it a good, is it 20 days or?
It's a little under 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe we do it a shorter period of time, but.
We bring it back to council every year.
But we can talk about it. But, you know, it's, it's the times we live in, and it's a shared responsibility. I mean, I try and do everything I can to support what I've learned in Neighborhood Watch or what our sheriff's department tell, and, you know, you see something, say it. I mean, the same thing for educating your children before they go to school. So I think it's a shared responsibility. It's no more that you just leave it up to public safety to take care of it. And we have done some very proactive things, and I think that's important for to keep getting that message out, that we are proactive, and we're not going to solve every crime, and we're not going to prevent every burglary, but we're going to do our best that we can to limit that amount. I just want to thank you for the three of you that went out to get that. I know Councilmember Chavez was working, and I was dealing with my mom, who's been in the hospital for 17 days, and fortunately now has transitioned out today to a nursing home. But they were kind enough to go and receive this recognition, and it says, County of Los Angeles to the City of Temple City, with sincere congratulations and best wishes, the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles hereby join you in your celebration February 13th, 2018, and that was our Lunar New Year celebration in the park for the Year of the Dog. It's quite a pretty certificate. So thank you again.
You know, that's one of the reasons why, you know, we go to different events and we present proclamations. And I never like to go after the County of Los Angeles because their thing is so big and impressive. You know, it's like everyone else's is a kind of normal size, but it is very nice.
You can't beat the county.
You're like, who signed it? All the supervisors?
All of them.
All of the
Very nice.
supervisors signed it. And you know, when my dad passed away, they actually closed, he was a county 35-year county employee, and the supervisor, Antodovich, closed in my dad's memory along with other employees, and they sent something to my mother that was this big. It came in a huge envelope.
They're very
and
nice.
She was just, you know, so thrilled to get something, and so they do some very nice things with their certificates. And
Thank you guys for going to that
So,
and
yeah,
accepting
thank
it.
you.
It was very nice. It was very, very nice.
so I
And
guess
they are
this
gonna-
goes in our office.
They did tell us that they are going to try to make it an annual event. They
Now-
mentioned that they, yeah.
This went along also with a comment that I think it was Supervisor Barger said, and was that they're making this a state celebration now? What did she say? Do you recall?
I didn't hear
Anyone
that.
who was-
I didn't get it.
Yeah, that, we should find out, but
Yeah,
anyway.
we should. I didn't hear that. I just
Something,
heard
do you
that this.
remember, Ryan?
Oh, Ed Chow.
Thank you,
Oh, that
Jean.
was that's right, that was at our celebration.
So Ed
right.
Chow is working on it to have it
That's
be, yes. So I remember there was something official about it, but, and let's see, I don't have anything else. Is there, oh, Vince, I'm sorry.
No problem. I just want to remind everybody, I know it's a little early to advertise the State of the City address.
Oh, yes.
That's coming up. Our Mayor
don't be-
Sternquist will be giving a State of the City address, March 13th, Tuesday, 7 to 9 p.m.
Yes.
at the Historic Society or the Women's Club next door. So everybody should set aside your time, put it on your calendar to make sure you don't miss the State of the City address.
And we'll have some nice refreshments and appetizers, so come. Item 16, reimbursement of expenses. We have one for Councilmember Fish, who was in a hotel and a taxi, as it says.
Wow.
And parking for the Sacramento Legislative Tour, January 8th through 10th. Thank you for going to that.
Yeah,
and
thank you for taking the time to go.
bringing
It
us
was,
back
and
the
all of you got
information
the
on
information
that.
I sent you,
Yeah,
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so thank you.
They're gonna start doing that on a regular basis, so I'll be sharing that
Okay, good.
information.
I'll be leaving, now that everything's somewhat settled, next week, I believe, to Washington DC to go speak to our legislators regarding transportation issues in the San Gabriel Valley. So I'm looking forward to that. Item 17, additional comments from anyone? Public comments? Jane? Nope? Okay, closed public comments. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Good job.
Thank you.